Ladies and gentlemen, today on the What's in My Head podcast, we got Jacob Hopkins, the voice of Gumball Watterson. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you doing, man?
Oh, fantastic, man. This is real fun. When I set out to do this podcast, there was a few shows that I actually got input from my son to make sure to try to get people on. And this is one we connected over. I had stopped watching cartoons probably around 2009, 2010, because everything just looked the same, right? And I'm a huge cartoon guy. If you can't tell, there's just a whole bunch of
Oh yeah, no, there's like the Team NT, Batman. Oh yeah,
yeah,
so many Funko Pops. Like me,
yeah.
I just have them all. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was really weird. And he brought this one up, and he was probably 5 or 6. It was before you took over. Uh,
Oh wow.
yeah, so he's 4 or 5, somewhere around there. And we started watching this, and I have never laughed harder without the help of marijuana at a cartoon in my life. Um,
Oh, that's awesome, man.
how was it? Just a call from your agent, and you're like, "Hey, you want to play Gumball?" Or have you watched Gumball at that point?
Yeah, yeah. It's a pretty like it's a long story. There's a lot to go with it. So I started acting when I was 5,
Jesus.
but voice act, and I'm 18 now. Yeah, but voice acting I didn't get into until I was 11. And I'd grown up loving cartoons, and they were basically my childhood.
Mm.
And when I signed with a voice acting agent and got into that field of acting, the very first audition slash gig that I got was Gumball.
Fuck, man.
And yeah, it was crazy, just like how everything just lined up. It was so bizarre. And I was, of course, like freaking out because yes, to answer your question, I was a huge fan
Yeah.
of Gumball beforehand. Logan Grove was, I was his understudy pretty much going through this process. Um, and what was even crazier was when I auditioned. Usually an audition is like you audition, and then
Mm.
if they really like you go in for a callback. And then the next step would be like a chemistry read where you would read with other people auditioning, and then you'd get it. But usually that process takes about maybe like a few weeks.
Mm.
But this process took about 2 months. So I auditioned, and then I went in for the callback, and then the um the casting agency were like, all right, we really love you. Like they knew at the time that I was going to be the guy, but what they wanted to see me do is like really show them
Mm.
what I was capable of. And that being said, what I ended up doing was recording snippets of episodes, full episodes, episodes that have never even been seen, treatments, which are scripts that haven't been turned into script format. They're just like new ideas that they were just writing in like paragraph form. And it was like 2 months of that. And during that time, I had signed with a singing coach to help like smooth out my voice and make it stronger and like increase the range of my voice, just make it better for voice acting.
Yeah.
And and when I was doing this, I started out um not necessarily copying Logan, but just sort of like learning the personality of Gumball.
Yeah.
Um and during those 2 months, I realized that taking over such an iconic role doesn't necessarily have to do with how well you can sort of appropriate that personality, but make it your own.
Yeah.
So, so I realized that this is just something that I got to use my personality going into as well. I can't just like study Logan every single day. So when I ended up getting it, when I officially got the role, Gumball started to transform. He still kept that sarcastic, fast-talking, witty nature about him, but he became more musical,
Mhm.
more expressive. And that was just a new flair that I had brought to the character. So we starting in season 3, which is when I started. We did a lot of songs. There was a lot of songs that were incorporated into it, and a lot of the characters started singing a
Yeah.
lot. And that was sort of a trend. What year was that? It was like maybe 2014 or
Mhm.
2015, around that time. That was sort of the trend of Cartoon Network. There were a lot of shows that were incorporating songs and
Yeah.
were kind of becoming like slash musicals. Um, and so that was something that I had brought into the life of Gumball Watterson. and I did it for seasons 3, 4, I would say half of 5, and I had a blast. It was truly, no pun intended, well, probably, but it was truly amazing. There we go.
Hey, well, I like a good pun, especially when it comes up, very, very casually. I like that.
Yeah.
You know, this is gonna, I guess it's gonna be a culture shock, or there is a huge age gap in what I watched and grew up on cartoons, what you grew up. Because you said you're 18, correct?
Yeah, right.
This is Christ, 2002. I mean,
Yeah.
what cartoons did you grow up with? We'll start there.
Okay, so I actually do want to say that I did watch the 80s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the cartoon. I did. I have the VHS tapes. Rob Paulson as Raphael, who I actually saw you had on your show.
Yeah,
He's incredible. And now he's Donatello. So
yeah,
that's
it's
cool.
insane. It's insane how not only is it insane that he came back for 2012, but the fact that they had the foresight, because they didn't do this back in the day. You didn't have, I think it kind of started with John Wesley Shipp when he played Flash, and then they bring him as Barry Allen's dad in the Flash series, which is like, it's a nod or a bow to what came before, and you don't really see that. And then they did it with the Ninja Turtles, which was fantastic. I wanted him to play Raphael so bad. But Sean Astin, of course, destroyed that role as well. He's fantastic in that role.
Yeah, he's really good.
But what were some of the other ones that you brought up? So you brought up the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, so like the Ninja Turtles, I actually did, like, now that I'm remembering, there were a lot of like more classic cartoons that I grew up on, as well as like what was out at the time. There was He-Man. I remember I had like it was like the remastered HD, like they were on DVD, but it was still like the original episodes. There was Dragon Ball, which I grew up heavily on. I remember watching that on Nicktoons, and then later it was on Cartoon Network, and then Adult Swim. So I would like keep track of like where it would go. And and oh, what was that?
What was your favorite character from?
Who's my favorite character? Okay, I would say Vegeta. I when I was a kid, I was like Gohan, because like I was like, Gohan's a kid. I'm a kid. He's cool. I relate to this. But growing up, Vegeta, slowly but surely. What else, man? There was Chowder on Cartoon Network. There was Johnny Bravo. Oh, of course, SpongeBob.
Oh man.
So like I was really heavily influenced by cartoons, and I had grown up idolizing these cartoons. There's Gravity Falls. There's so many. And I knew, like, even at a young age, like I wanted to do this. Like this is the dream, basically.
Do you feel the same like fulfillment that you would, because you started out as a very, very young, and you're still really young, but a very, very young child actor, and you were in front of a TV screen, and then you kind of transition and you're doing voice acting. Do you feel the same kind of fulfillment, I guess spiritually, emotionally, or however you want to do it professionally, that you did on either side of the camera?
Yeah, definitely. It's always sort of the same. Yeah, that is a good way to describe it. A fulfillment. It's like a sense of accomplishment. Of because people forget acting is an art form. It's a part of the arts, and it involves a lot of your own creativity, your own wit, intelligence, personality, however you want to perceive it. And you have to use these skills and your own insight to create a character. And auditioning is already cool enough, but when you land a role, that's really where the fulfillment comes in. And I get that behind the mic, in front of the camera, because they are different. It requires different, I would say there's different technicalities, different skills. There's like working the mic, working in front of the camera. Camera has a lot to do with your body. The mic has to do a lot with the quality of your voice. But in the end, it's acting, and it's art, and it's fulfilling your creativity. So I would say definitely, yes, there is a sense of fulfillment for sure.
Now, when you were doing the voice acting for Gumball, you obviously said a lot of singing. Is that something that you kind of, because you said you had to go and get training, or just to build up your voice, your range. When you're doing that, does that improve or extend your stamina for singing, or is it still just it takes a toll on you?
You're talking about like how singing coach like lessons incorporates into voice acting, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, would it just extend your stamina, or what would it help you with?
Oh yeah, it helps with everything that has to do with voice acting. So singing, to be like a really good singer, or just in general, just to be a singer, you have to have range, you have to have developed tone in your voice, really good breath control, and all of that incorporates into voice acting because, like I touched on earlier, there are differences between working in front of the camera and working behind the mic. So when you're behind the mic, it's just all focused on your voice. And you have to, speak clearly so people know what you're saying. You have to have really good breath control so you don't run out of breath while you're speaking. Because, for example, Gumball talks incredibly fast and yells a lot. So you have to have really good breath control. You have to know Gumball, what I said, yells a lot, so you have to know like the certain way to yell so you don't really damage your vocal cords. It comes from your diaphragm, your gut, instead of your throat, your chest. um and all of that I learned from singing, my singing coach.
Shout him
And
out, or her out.
yeah, her name is Joan. And yeah, and she pretty much taught me everything I know technically wise, like how to work the mic, how to do voiceover, pretty much.
What was the hardest thing for you to kind of get a grasp on when you started training with her?
I would say the breath control. Well, I was younger when I started. I was 11 when I got Gumball, so my range was already where it needed to be. It was young, youthful, high pitched, raspy.
Yeah.
But the breath control is something that takes a lot of training, and it's something a lot of people don't really think about when they think of voiceover. Um, and I remember there were certain exercises that I had to do, like I would, and I still do them to this day. But I would like breathe in like as deep as I can and then sing out a note and hold it for as long as I can. And I remember going up the scales of a piano, doing each note, doing that. And I remember by the end, like my lungs would just be so sore and exhausted
Yeah.
because it's like expanding your lungs and then you have to constrict them. But then afterwards, your lungs would be super strong and you would find yourself not running out of breath as fast. It's almost like swimming, right?
Mm.
Because when you're a swimmer and you swim for a long time, you have amazing breath control because you're using your lungs like all the time. That was definitely really, really hard when I started out. Um, but I got the hang of it. I worked really hard doing this role, man. Gumball was super difficult. Because like there's just so much there's like minus the personality, like you have to bring 110%
Yeah.
in everything else, including his like really colorful array of personality.
Now, when you're voicing a child or a younger than an adult, obviously your voice is going to change because of puberty, getting older, and all this other stuff. If you smoke, you drink, you don't take care of it, you're obviously going to sound different. Is that something that they come and tell you guys, like, hey, this might be, temporary, we might have to, switch it up and change you out? Or is that something you find out like, damn it, your voice got too deep, you're gone, you're out of here, kid? I mean, what is that really like?
Well, I mean, it happened with Logan, Logan Grove, and when I took over, I knew that it would happen to me one day. Um, but I didn't really think about it a lot when I was doing the role. I think I did it for about like 4 years.
Yeah.
Um, and then around the fourth year is when my voice started to kind of change.
Mhm.
And and I was like, oh, I know it's coming. It's the time. And they told me, hey, it's gonna be that time. It's coming.
Mhm.
So what I ended up doing, I was like, you know what? I know it's coming. I know it's inevitable, but I'm just gonna keep doing it for as long as I can. I remember doing my singing lessons with my coach, like even more, like I doubled it, and I was able to keep the role for 8 more months than
Mhm.
I would have because I had smoothed out my voice. And and then the time came. And it was hard for me at first. I remember being sort of like distraught, like, oh man, this can't be happening. Like I've done this for so long now. Um, it's like been a part of my life. But then I realized, wait a second, this was the first voiceover role that I booked. This was the first one. Gumball was the first one. And there's so many more out there. And if Gumball was the first one, what does that say about how much I've worked and what I've learned and how much I've gained from the experience? And I realized that there's so much more that I can do, and this isn't the end.
Yeah.
It's the end of Gumball, but it's not the end. I had to look at like the bigger picture. And yeah. And then there came Dragon's Rescue Riders, and then many more.
So we'll get to Dragon's Rescue in just a second, but when you were talking about, there's many more out there. There's more fish in the sea. That thing that every parent tells you when you get your first crush and then they inevitably dump you or you dump them. There's plenty out there. If you had your hand, I need to get a button for this podcast. It's like a power button or whatever it is. If you have your hand on the button and you can have any voice acting role, any character whatsoever from past, present. We always can't do future because we don't know what's going down. What would be a couple of them if you couldn't just pick one? What would be 2 or 3 voice roles you'd love to have?
Okay. I think I would have to go with existing ones because I could make up stuff all day. But if I were to go with a couple, I would say first Michelangelo from Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
I'm a big martial artist too. I'm almost a 3rd degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Oh, very nice.
One stripe away. But a lot of, obviously my reasons for doing martial arts now has changed from the reason back then, which was Ninja Turtles and Dragon Ball. So I was like, I want to do what they do. Yeah. So I would say that. I would also say, there we go, Dragon Ball. Prince Vegeta, the Prince of all Saiyans.
Dude, good man.
Or maybe Trunks from the Future Saga.
How often have you been doing Vegeta? Like, I gotta say, you're driving a fucking car. It takes. I was stationed out in San Diego for the longest time, so I know the traffic scene out there in LA and everything. So you're just driving. How many times have you broken out Vegeta because somebody cut you off? Because it sounds like that one came from a dark place.
Funny you mention that because when I'm driving, one of like the things that I do to warm up going into the recording sessions is practicing the character singing along to songs that are on the radio. So that's just one of the things I do. And then if someone cuts me off, which believe me, it's gonna happen 100% of the time, I also use that chance to warm up as well. And dude, I remember when I was a kid, I used to do prank calls, which, by the way, don't do that. It's such a scummy thing to do. But it was really funny at the time because what I would do is I'd like call Pizza Hut or whatever. Like, it was the childish thing ever. And they'd be like, yes, Pizza Hut, how may I take your order? And I'd be like, hello, this is Prince Vegeta. I'd like 1 large chicken pot pie. Like, we don't sell those. I'm like, oh, Kakarot, what do you want? And they're like, all right, goodbye. It was terrible, but I really
no, that's so much better because I used to do the same thing, and I'm not going to go into it because it is not it wasn't anything crazy, but in today's day and age, I would get crucified. But I would call the Chinese place, and I would go to this place almost every single day. I would save up my money all week, and then that's all I would eat for lunch because school lunches sucked, man. But there was a Chinese place, and then for $4.25 you could go and get whatever you wanted at this Chinese restaurant. So I always go and get the same thing: pork egg foo young, white rice, extra gravy, right? So I'd go down there and I'd call ahead, and I would just sit there and ask them the wildest shit. And this is before, ladies and gentlemen, before caller ID. You should have known better. I'm pretty sure you grew up with a fucking cell phone.
Okay, yeah. So we actually did not have caller ID. I'd call on the home phone. So like that was like hooked up to like a fax machine, if anyone even knows what that is. But there was no caller ID. Now do not do that because you will get caught so easy, and it's a really bad thing to do in the first place.
Well, I would call and I would try to order these bogus things. I would just look stuff up on Google and shit or the internet back in the day. Yeah. This is like 2000. This is before you were born, I think. This is like 2002-ish, 3-ish, somewhere around there.
Oh, I was born.
Yeah, so I
was a little person, but yeah,
very little person. And I would just ask for the most off the wall shit. And then eventually they started hanging up on me like halfway through. Like I'd go to ask and then click. And then my mom ordered from here on a Friday night. This is when Blockbuster was still open. We went and got Blockbuster. We rented
Oh
a
yeah,
video game,
Blockbuster.
yeah, or a movie or something like that. And then China Kitchen was the name of the place. Free ad for China Kitchen, but it was right there. And she had called ahead, and then she goes to order something. She's like, "No, we know it's you," and then click. I'm like, "What the fuck is that about?" And then my mom calls back. She's like, "Hey, I just tried to put in an order. Somebody said we know it's you," and they hung up on me. Yeah, we get a call from this number almost every single day, calling fake stuff in, and we get upset with it, and we see your number. And then she was like, "When was the last phone call you got?" And then they said earlier today. And then she looks at me, and I'm
Oh.
like, "Oh shit!" And my mom had this. I don't know if you're ever a wrestling fan, but The Rock, right? And he would do this.
Yeah.
I can't do it. He would lift his one eyebrow up. Boom, boom, right there. That was a look I would get, but it would make my ass pucker so tight. And she just looked at me, and I'm like, "Oh fuck, it got real." And my mom was like, "I'll call you guys right back." Needless to say, I got my ass whooped. I wasn't allowed to use the phone, and I couldn't order China Kitchen for at least a month. Is what I remember.
That was caller ID.
That was caller ID,
and
I didn't know about it because it was just like I'm a dumb kid. We didn't have caller ID.
Yeah.
We still
no,
had
you don't think
phone.
anything's gonna happen. It's like, oh, I'm on the phone. What's gonna happen? They're gonna reach through. It's like nobody cares.
I mean,
right?
If they knew I was only like less than a quarter mile down the street, they probably would have came and jumped us. But that's neither here nor there. I don't even know where we were really going or why I told that story, other than just don't prank call people.
Yeah, I think it started with I did a Vegeta. Oh, you were like, what characters would you want to do? Yeah, that's right.
There you go. And you brought up one that you're doing now for Netflix, man. You want to talk about that one for a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So Dragons Rescue Riders is a DreamWorks show on Netflix, and it takes place in the How to Train Your Dragon universe, which I'm a huge, huge fan of. I grew up reading all of the books, watching all the movies. Didn't watch the show as much, but I was still like heavily into the lore. And I remember when I got this call, and I was super stoked and really excited. And I auditioned for Axel Fink, who is a human in the Dragons universe, and they ended up actually modeling him to look like me. He's like this blonde, blue-eyed kid, and he's pretty much a con man. He's not really on like the evil side or the good side, even though his like biological like heritage comes from Magnus Fink, the evil genius. He's his uncle, basically. So like that's who I am usually with in the show. But there are times where I team up with the Rescue Riders, who are basically like the superheroes of the island. They're two human twins, Dak and Layla, and they live with a family of dragons. And Axel, he's sort of like, I like to quote Chris Pratt's Star-Lord in this a lot. He's a little bit of good and a little bit of bad, a little bit of both. You don't really know what he's up to. He's sort of got his own agenda, right? He basically just sides with any side that'll benefit him.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Opportunity.
And in the end, yeah, basically. And in the end, all he really wants is just a dragon for himself, but we don't really know why. It's kind of led to believe like maybe he just wants to be loved, or maybe he's just a power-hungry madman. You know, nobody knows.
World domination. It's one of the two.
Yeah, world domination or being loved. But in either way, he's an unpredictable, really, really fun role to play. Unpredictability is like, that's a word. Unpredictability.
I'm gonna go ahead and write it down, and I'll check. I'll fact check later.
All right. Basically, those types of roles are really fun to play because you don't have any rules to follow. You can just do pretty much anything. Mm-hmm. That's why Mark Hamill has such a blast all the time in his voiceover work. But yeah, that's Dragons Rescue Riders, and you can watch it on Netflix. We have seasons 1 and 2 out right now, and we got more on the way, but I'm not sure when exactly they're coming out yet, but they are.
That was I saw my first How to Train Your Dragon movie, the third one. Me and my kid before COVID, you know, we would get out. I would get out of work on certain days about the same time he would get out of school. So we would just go, and then there was a movie theater right down the street, and we would see whatever was in the theater. That was like our little bonding thing, or that little thing that we did together. Because my wife just she likes movies, but you know, it's just she don't like the same shit we like. So it was just something that me and him could go and do. And he was like, Dad, How to Train Your Dragon 3 is out. Can we go see it? And I'm like, sure. I've never seen the other two. It was just not a movie that I thought I would like, right? So I just pushed it off. I'm like, yeah, we'll go to it. We go there, and then I'm pretty sure it's been out long enough, and the details are a little blurry here. But I remember him giving the dragon, or the dragon and him like separating away, at the end of this movie. Spoiler alert. And
for those of you who haven't seen the movie,
it's been at least a year, I think, but people get upset when you talk about Game of Thrones that ended fucking 2 years ago at this point. But I digress. And it was that scene where they kind of like went their own way, and it was like a grow up story type of thing. It was like, everybody has that one friend that, they fall in love with somebody, and then you're still best friends, but everything's changed. And you start seeing this, and I'm like, oh man. And I'm stone cold sober watching this. I'm like, oh man, this is really, it hit me here. And then like they split, and then, what happens in the movie. I won't spoil it, for anybody else. But I start like, my eyes start getting all glassy and shit. And my kid is like the perfect person to like rib, and by rib, I mean just like make fun of you type of thing. And he's done it to me twice on 2 movies. This one, and then the other one was the Into the Spider-Verse movie.
Yeah.
It's the scene with Stan. It's the scene with Stan Lee, and he was talking about he'll grow into a mask, and he's like, "You'll know when you know." And just right after Stan had died, and my fucking eyes are all watery and shit. He's like, "Dad, are you crying?" And the same thing at How to Train Your Dragon 3. He's like, "Dad, are you crying?" I'm like, "Shut up! Don't look at me right now. Look at the movie. We're here for the movie, not for what Dad's doing." And he's like, "You're crying," and I'm like, Jesus, shut up. You're gonna make me get pointed out here in the theater, being the only big fucking 6'2" dude. So you're crying over an animated.
You're crying.
And then, we get home, and then for both movies, my wife was home right after, and she was like, what'd you guys think of the movie? I was like, oh, it's a great movie. And my kid walks, and he's like, yeah, but Dad cried. And I'm like, shut up. Quit killing everybody.
It reminds me of that one episode of Beavis and Butthead where it's like, they're watching some like dramatic black and white like French noir movie, and it's like this really dramatic scene, and Beavis is like, he's eating like a chili dog, but it's got an onion in it, so he starts crying at that exact moment, and Butthead's just like, whoa, are you crying? For like the rest of the episode, it's like it has like time cards like 3 weeks later, 1 month later, 50 years later. Butthead's just like, you were totally crying.
Another show that's coming back, and you got a really good for that one. I mean, it's crazy how much shit is coming back. And
dude, I'm so excited for that.
I hope it lasts longer than the last one. My favorite episode from the last reboot was Twilight was real big, I guess, when they were doing it. So they were like, he's like, chicks are into werewolves, right? So
that's right.
They go and get bit by a homeless dude. They end up getting like hepatitis C. They're all sitting on the couch. They're barely hanging on to life. And they didn't turn into a werewolf, needless to say. But I'm glad one's coming back, because King of the Hill, Mike Judge, fantastic creator.
Oh,
one of the greatest.
So funny, dude. And I think like the new Beavis and Butthead is supposed to be like making fun of the modern era. So it's supposed to be like making fun of like YouTubers, TikTok, like all the popular things. And that sounds so funny, dude. And they still have their like AC/DC Metallica t-shirts on.
I hope that's what they do, because it's South Park is probably the funniest cartoon. I don't even know if it's considered a cartoon, or animation is completely different than cartoons, but it's one of the funniest cartoons, and they take something every year, and I don't know how they do it and stay topical and yet stay funny. I mean, what was it? PC Principal was one of the funniest fucking I've ever seen in my life.
God.
And then, man, we could just sit here and talk about all that crazy shit forever, but it's just fantastic funny. Trey Parker and Matt Stonia, fucking geniuses.
The Whole Foods secretly being an alien civilization. Love that. It's so funny. They just like, it's like these hypotheticals they just like pull out of thin air. I don't know how they do it. It's so funny, man.
Well, did you see how this is when Family Guy and what was it, fucking Simpsons and South Park were all fighting for dominance back in mid 2000s or
Family Guy is not funny. They just take cutscenes and they do not cut.
How the fuck do you work and do all these voice acting roles? I mean, I cook for a living essentially, and I do this for fun. And there's days where I can't remember my own name. You're fucking pulling lines from a cartoon that happened at least 8, 9, 10 years ago, and you're still fucking working. I mean, I guess it's got to be young brain, man. You can just absorb and keep everything.
Let me let you in on a little secret. It's a little thing called YouTube and recommended algorithms, and just like these short clips that just pop up, and I'm like, sure, I'll watch that.
So
And
I'm
then
gonna
I'll watch it like
YouTube.
10 times in a row.
All right, I got YouTube. It's written down there on the bottom, so I got YouTube.
Sweet.
I'm gonna start doing that one from now on, just so I can stay relevant and topical. I just don't seem out of place with all these young kids. But yeah, with all the stuff that you've done, right? Because you've done Goldbergs, you've done Gumball, you've done Dragons, right, man? What one would you say you got to like let your hair down the most in and just have just off the wall fun? Was it Gumball?
Oh, Gumball, absolutely, 100%, because that was like that. I would say that is the first like lead character that I booked, and Gumball is so colorful in his personality. He's just at times unpredictable, and that was like one of the few roles where I just let loose. Just like anything could go. And I remember I would improvise like crazy, and they would animate around my improv. There was one line, man, I can't remember the name of the episode, but it was it was probably something like the school pet or something. For those of you who are watching, you could find it. It's when Gumball and Darwin babysit Chris Morris, the school pet. Like, he's like this little hamster, but he's disgusting. He's like this old, like, raggedy hamster. And I remember like he gets let loose in the school, and Gumball and Darwin have to try and find him, like they're hunting him down at the school. And I remember when I was recording that episode, I was like, well, Gumball's a cat. Like, shouldn't he be able to smell him out? So I had this one line where I was like, you can't hide forever, Chris Morris. And then I said, I can smell you. And I remember they animated around that. They actually kept that, and they animated where when I say that, Gumball's eyes turn into like these cat eyes from like the Thriller. Like they're like yellow with like the black like slashes in them. It's like, whoa, I didn't know they were gonna do this. Like, I found out when I watched the episode. And it was like, and it came down to the point where it's like, this is not to sound arrogant or anything, but like, it's called, The Amazing World of Gumball. This is starring Gumball, so I should be allowed to let loose. And it was so much fun, man. It was a really, really great time. I learned a lot. I'm very humbled by it. I've learned everything I know about voice acting from doing it. I got to work with so many amazing people that I still keep in touch with to this day. It was truly a blessing. Really, really great, like pretty much once in a lifetime opportunity.
What was it like? Were you going to school when you were doing Gumball, when you were hot and heavy in Gumball?
Yeah. I was in middle school.
What was that like, man? Because I got to imagine it was fucking bananas.
Yeah, it was. It got it. Here's the thing. I was always a really good student. I would always like pay attention and stay on task and everything. And I had to be an actor, because I had to keep my grades up. I had to stay on task and focus on my work, because if I were to fall behind, and I'm already like, I already have like a career, I'm already going out to work. And if I fall behind on the schoolwork, then that's going to go downhill. And what I would have to do is I would like have to know what days I would be working on set, and I'd have to get my work ahead of time. And pretty much voiceover wise, I never did school on set, because that would only take about a couple hours to do a full episode, because they don't have to like go through angles and shots and takes. It's just the mic. But on set, like Goldbergs or True Blood, that was where I had to do schoolwork, because it would take like all day. I'd miss all day, like days of school pretty much. And I think, I don't know if the laws have changed now, but when I was a kid and I had to do school on set, it was like 6 hours of schoolwork. Like, I had to like they called it banking hours. I had to do 6 hours of schoolwork on set, and then for the rest of the time there, I would work, or I would like take breaks. Like, I would work, school, like I'd interchange throughout the day. And it wasn't until I think I was like maybe 15 or 16 when I took what's called the Chesapeake, which is this test that pretty much anyone can take to get their high school diploma early.
Yeah.
So I still finished high school, you know. I mean, education is very important to me. But I took that and then I passed. And then when I had that, I didn't have to do schoolwork on set anymore. I could do it on my own time. So then that way it would be easier. So that's how I managed to make that easier. But before, it got pretty difficult at some times. And I remember my teachers, I'm really grateful to have had teachers that were very willing to work with me. They're very, very helpful. And they would sometimes joke with me like, how do you do this, man? Like, how are you not crazy already?
Did you have a Darwin in school? Did you guys ever just fuck you? I gotta imagine you got to have a friend just as close as Gumball and Darwin were.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I totally did. I had a Darwin in middle school. I had a Darwin in high school. I think everyone has their own Darwin.
Yeah.
But really, the truest Darwin to me is Terrell Ransom Jr., who voices Darwin Watterson. He is one of my best friends to this day. We truly are like quote unquote brothers. Man, it's so crazy. Like I'm just like going down memory lane right now and I'm realizing like, wow, all these friendships that came along the way too. Like it's not just the work that went with it. It's the relationships that I built along the way too. And like those never go away.
Oh, I mean, it's great. It's you meet people, and if I could give anybody advice, and I try to as much as possible because I fucked up like most people have a lot in my life, but you learn more from fucking up than you really do nailing something.
Yep.
With the exception of you and Gumball, so don't hold that against me. Unless you're knocking something out of the park first bat, you know, it's very rare that happens.
No,
but
I've definitely had my fair share, man. You definitely, yeah, you're totally right. Totally right.
So it's if I could give any advice, man, it's always build bridges where you can. Don't burn those fuckers down. Man. Build them, force them, fortify them. Keep getting all the like. Be a people collector, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like shit, I was gonna do a great Silence of the Lambs reference here. Buffalo Bill was it Buffalo Bill? Buffalo Bob. Can't remember now at this point.
Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I'm not saying collect people like that guy, but just collect as many as you can because you never know what doors are really going to be open, right? So, it's nice to see, the younger generation, you're not that much younger than me, but a younger generation really just enhancing. And there's always room at the table for everybody, right? You just got to make a little bit of room and everybody can really come up together,
Yep.
Going back to the Gumball though, what was your favorite scene with Darwin, and what was your favorite episode that was, kind of hanging around Darwin?
Oh, okay.
Figured Gumball would be a little bit too easy, so.
Yeah. I think my favorite scene with or favorite episode with Darwin would be the Bros. That was one of the very first episodes that I did. And what it's about is pretty much Gumball in the previous episode, The Shell, Gumball finally became boyfriend and girlfriend with Penny. And Darwin is very jealous of that because before it was just Gumball and Darwin. Now it's Gumball and Darwin, but mostly Penny and not so much Darwin anymore. And so Darwin's kind of like going through this phase, like he's trying to accept reality, but he can't. And he just really wants to be hanging out with his brother all the time. And that's just not the case. So Gumball and Darwin come to a point where Gumball realizes like, oh man, I've actually been a jerk though, because I really should be spending more time with my brother. And I have a brother in real life, and that really hit home for me. And it really highlighted the importance of just like, maybe even have like a sister. Like it's just the importance of like really close sibling bonds. And it was a very wholesome and sweet episode. I really like that episode.
Man, thank you for sharing that, man. What was your, I don't want to say best experience with it, but what do you think you got most out of Gumball when you sit back and look at it?
Oh, just the experience of like how to do voiceover. There's a lot of technical stuff that goes along with it. It's like I actually have like my own studio mic in front of me. There's like certain ways to work it. Like you can't hit it. You have to be like a certain distance from it. You can't turn away from it. You always have to be acting in front of it. And then like looking up at like a screen. Sometimes I have to do like pickups where they've already animated around my original lines, but maybe there was like a slur, maybe they want to add and by slur I mean like I slurred my words,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
anything else, but
Oh yeah.
yeah,
We need to
or
make sure you're
maybe
real careful today.
or maybe there was like they wanted to add something new, or there's like a sound that I got to make, like a surprise, like a shock or something. There's a certain skill to that as well. There's like timing where you have to like speak like syncing up with the lip movements basically. um and all that difficult stuff I learned from doing Gumball. It was my first thing. I did it for 4 years. um and that's what I'm most grateful for, because like I could do Gumball, but I could also do Gumball, then gain the experience from doing it, and then use that experience to do other roles. And if I didn't have that experience, then I probably wouldn't be where I am now.
Well, I mean, that's a fantastic. You do not seem like you're fucking 18 years old, man. You seem. I gotta attribute it to either you just being super self-conscious about what's going on around you, which you don't see. I mean, shit, I was retarded, and I don't mean it like that, boys and girls. So I was just very stupid for the longest time. I mean, until at least 2 years ago, when I really pulled my head on my ass, really started thinking about stuff differently. I mean, like I said, you seem very well grounded at such a young age. I mean, is it parenting? I mean, what is it, man? Because it seems like they raise you right.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It's definitely majority of that has to do with parenting. My dad was an actor before me, so he knows the ins and outs of the industry. And at some points, the industry, can be dangerous.
Yeah.
But he and both my mom, that both of them really guided me through like growing up in this adult world. I was a kid when I started.
Yeah.
Um, but also a lot of it has to do with like what I just said, growing up in an adult world. I was 5 when I started acting, but this is a very mature profession.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying I was like Einstein when I was 6, but like growing up, I had to learn how to carry myself professionally and be level-headed and calm and, under pressure. And yeah, a lot of that just came with it. Also, like, if like public speaking or like knowing how to talk to people came from that, because
Yeah.
like in auditions and performing, there we go, performing. I would perform in like large in front of large amounts of people at such a young age, so I never really was like nervous to do anything in front of a lot of people,
Yeah.
because I grew up at such a young, and when we're young, we're not nervous to do that, but I grew up continuously doing that. Um, so a lot of it comes from just being an actor and learning the industry.
Well, when oh shit, I had a thought there. Sorry. So when you were
No,
doing such a young age, what can you point out like the spot or the point? Was it a movie, TV show? Was it something, or was it just your dad where that bug bit you that you're like, ah shit, I want to get into Hollywood. I want to do this for a living.
yeah. Well, it's pretty interesting. Like I said, I started when I was 5, so like I never really grew up knowing that I wanted to be an actor, because like I only had 4 years of my
Yeah,
whole life before that, and I didn't really think about
that's a
what I
long
wanted
40
to do
years.
at all. Yeah. Um, but I remember how I got into it, and it was one fateful day. My dad and I were setting it up. Ooh, flashback. My dad was running errands and I was with him. And at the time, he was still an actor. And he was like, I just got to stop by my agency. I had no idea what that was.
Yeah.
I don't even think he told me that. He was just like, one more errand, buddy, or something. And we just stopped by his agents. And I'm just like sitting in the office. I'm playing with toys or whatever. I probably had a Marvel action figure in my hand, knowing me at that time. And the agents looked over at me and they're like, is that your son? And my dad's like, yeah. And they were like, who is he? Like, does he want to act? Like, has he ever
He's
thought
just
about
some
that?
random kid I found on the side of the
Yeah,
road.
like,
Bring him with me. Yes, he's my son.
yeah, it's like, nah, I don't know. And
I'm at Ralph's. I figured he want to ride.
I thought he was with you. And and they were like, does he want to act? And I like shut up. And I was like, sure, what's acting? Right?
Yeah.
That was me at that age. I was like, I want to try everything. I was like an adventurer, you know.
Yeah.
And I tried it. I signed with them. My dad coached me. I went to like other like coaching lessons, you know, workshops, and yeah, it all went from there. And at the time when I was a little kid, to me it was like playing pretend.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're pretending to be like a superhero, or, you know, like a wizard or whatever, you know. And it was like the coolest thing in the world to me, because it's like I can be anything I want.
Yeah.
And then like growing up and like learning the industry, I realized, I think it was probably around the time when I got True Blood, which was like the first big thing I got. I was 9. I played Alexander Drew, like this really powerful vampire. And at that time, I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Because like this is so cool, you know. And then it just went from there, and I really like focused on it and made it like, this is what I want to do. This is going to be my career pretty much.
Now, what did your mom? Because you brought up your mom, but what did your mom do?
Hmm.
Was she in the acting world as well, or?
Yes. She was the one that was with me everywhere I went. She was in the acting world as well before I was, and she knew the ins and outs as well. And my dad like had a job at the time, so like he wasn't able to like take me to like all these auditions and everywhere, because he was busy, you know, supporting the family and everything. But my mom was the one who, you know, man, I would not be where I am without her. I mean, that's that. If I could sum it up in one sentence, that would be it. She took me to all my auditions. She helped me prepare for all of them. She was there when I booked them. You know, she would drive me there, keep me safe, make sure I was safe all the time, you know. Because like I said, man, especially when you're like a child actor, this industry can at some points get kind of dangerous. And you know, if you don't have, you know, those guardians that like are there with you all the time, you know. But thankfully I my mom was there. My dad came with me a lot too, just not as much.
Yeah.
I don't want to like preface it like he didn't at all,
No, no. I
because
got
he definitely did. But yeah, I was heavily influenced by them, especially in the voice, not voice acting, but like the acting
yeah.
world. And yeah, I wouldn't be where I am without either of them, pretty
So
much.
that's fantastic, man.
Thank
You
you.
mentioned something really early on, and I wanted to get back to it because it's something I had told my son, because my son's a huge, like I said, a huge fan of Gumball, and he does karate, and you do Taekwondo.
Yeah.
What age did you get into Taekwondo?
9. That was actually around the time I got True Blood. I had grown up. I think I said this like early on in the podcast, but I grew up on like TMNT and Dragon
Yeah,
Ball. So like martial arts was like, whoa to me when I saw that. I was like, people can move like that?
yeah,
That's insane, you know. I was like, I want to do that. And I got into Taekwondo, which it's different from karate.
mhm,
It's mostly kicking. There is some striking in it, but it's a lot of kicking. And I've been doing it for 9 years now. Almost a third degree, just one more test, one more belt test, one more stripe, and I'm there. Um, and yeah, and I've been doing it ever since, and I love it to death. It's when I first started, it was more or less like me being a fanboy. But as I really got into it, and I really got good at it, because I was just practicing every single day, going to the dojo every single day. It kind of became like a lifestyle,
mhm.
and there's like a certain discipline that goes along with it, a very like humbling discipline that goes along with it. You know, they teach you, if you have the right sensei. I don't want you to go to Cobra Kai or anything. Definitely find
Cobra
something
Kai's a
that's
fantastic show, by the way.
it is. But the sensei's there, not so much. You gotta learn.
Johnny's a fantastic. If you take out the context of him calling his students, don't be a pussy, or or he calls the guy that has a cleft palate. What did he fucking call him? A monster or some? I don't know. My kid's been watching that. Like we've watched.
He calls him Lip. Like he just calls him Lip.
There you go. And he's transformed into Hawk, man. I mean, it's just
there you go.
See if you can book that show because it'd be fantastic.
Dude, that is the dream. But yeah, like my point into getting into all that was like find something that's like Miyagi-Do, where you learn the true heart of the martial arts as well. It's not all about strike first, strike hard, no mercy. There's an honor to it. There's you learn how to fight. Basically, how it's put is you learn how to fight so you don't have to.
Yep.
Pretty much. You don't go out to start fights deliberately. You learn how to defend yourself, defend the people you care about. There's like a justice that goes along with it too. And that's where like the lifestyle that I mentioned comes into it. And I really like that. I like learning how to be strong, but not for yourself, but more or less for the people you care about.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny how much things are the same, yet things are different, right? So that's how my kid got into Kempo karate. We were watching that 2012 series that we talked about earlier for the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Like, man, those dudes move weird. I'm like, yeah, they're ninjutsu, right? They're ninjas. And he was like, can I go to school to be a ninja? And I'm like, I don't know about like 100% ninja, but you could learn some shit. And then we signed him up for karate, and he just earned his purple belt a few weeks ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's weird because you said the same thing, and then the kid has the same thing. And then I tried the same thing when I was like maybe 6 or 7. And then I can't remember if I got kicked in the nose, and it was a very grazing like nose type of hit. It was either a kick or a punch. And I remember my eyes just watering up because it's as soon as you get hit in the nose, your eyes just start to water.
Yeah.
And I remember just wanting to like hit this dude with a stick instead of like just popping a karate chop or a kick or some shit like that.
Yeah, you just want to beat the crap out of him.
I was like, I just see rage. I'm like, well, this sport is not for me. And luckily I just went to basketball because, I didn't get kicked in the face anymore. Elbows a couple times, but not really kicks and shit.
Man, I got some stories for you. Ooh.
Yeah? Did you do tournaments, or was it just...
I did, and I still do. I have a couple where I got hit really hard, but both of them are like polar opposites of what happened after I got hit, and it just shows like how much I learned. I remember when I was going to, I've gone to 2 dojos. Now I go to Ultimate Taekwondo in Burbank, if anyone's interested. But just giving them a shout out, But the first one I went to doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But the first one I went to, I remember there was this girl there, and I won't like say her name or anything. Yeah. I'll keep everything kind of incognito, but she wasn't, I don't want to like build it up like she was like this really mean person. She was a very, very nice person. Yeah. But I'm trying to like find like a character to like compare her to, she was so serious and like a badass pretty much. Like okay. Yeah. Oh, and Android 18. There you go.
Fantastic.
She was Android 18, like carbon copy. She was like really fit, and she was so serious, and she was really, really good at martial arts. She's so fast and so strong. And she was like, I want to say like 5 belts ahead of me. So she was definitely way better than me. And I remember sparring her at the dojo. It wasn't at a tournament. It was just like sparring, one-on-one. And we were fully decked out in gear. So it's not like we were just like going ham into beating each other up. But I remember like one of the most powerful Taekwondo moves is a back kick, where it's like, this is your front leg, back leg. You turn around and like kick him with your back leg, it's
almost like a mule kick,
like a piston, And it's a really strong kick if done properly. And she pulled it off on me, and I remember just like pow, just like it just like exploded in my ribs, and I sent like flying like 3 feet back, and I landed on my ass, and I got back up, and I was like, ow! I was like really hurting. I was like 11 at that time, and she was like maybe 15 or something. Like she really had the upper hand on me, And I remember going back home and I was like crying. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And my mom, who, she told me, she sat me down and she talked to me. She says, I went through a similar experience as well. I was like, what do you mean? Like, you got kicked in the ribs too? She said,
No, she
no.
kicked your old boy.
Yeah. She said, no, but my mom, when she was younger, was a professional dancer, and dancing is another form of art. And it's very, very hard, hard to do. A lot of discipline to go along with it. And she told me that she had a teacher that was super hard on her. And this teacher was harder on my mom than anyone else. And my mom, and she told me that she went home one day and she was crying. She said she doesn't want to do it anymore. It's unfair, And then my grandmother sat her down and told her, the reason why your teacher's being so hard on you is because you are the best one in there. And she believes in you and she wants the best for you. And she said, you don't just give up on things because they're hard. You do them because they're hard.
Oh yeah.
And my mom had a pinnacle at that moment. Like, oh my gosh, you're right. And then she told me, and my mom told me the same thing. And then I had that pinnacle. Like, yeah, that's why I'm doing it. I'm not training in martial arts because it's easy. Like, if it was easy, anyone could do it. Yeah. I'm doing it because it's hard to learn, and it's more gratifying when you learn all these really hard things. And I learned from that, and I learned how to deal with that type of pain. And if you get hurt sparring, it's not like you just start whining. It's like, this pain will make me stronger in the end, And so flash forward, like, I would say maybe this is definitely before COVID. I think it was like in March or February. It was this year. I remember we went to this tournament. My dojo and I, there's like a select few of students from my dojo that were allowed to compete. And I was one of them. And I remember I was warming up and I saw this guy, and he stood out to me because he was warming up for the sparring part of the competition.
Yeah.
But he was really good. And he stood out to me because he was like a monster, man. Like, the moves he would pull off while he was practicing was insane. And I knew in my head, I'm going to fight this guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to spar this guy. And I don't know how I knew it, but it's like, out of all like the hundreds of people that are competing in this thing, I don't know how I knew it, man, but I was like, I'm going to end up fighting this guy. And I kid you not, the very first match that I get is against that guy. And I was like, I knew it. I don't know how I knew it, but I knew I was going to fight this guy. And my teammates are not teammates, I would say, but like my friends, fellow martial artists, are like pumping me up. They're like, you got this, man. You're going to beat him. And I was like, I knew I was going to fight this guy. And I was telling him, I was like, I don't know how I knew this, but I knew it in my gut. And they're like, what? What are you talking about? Just get in there. And I go in and I was like, all right, I knew I was going to fight him. I just got this gut feeling, and I'm going to give it my all. And I remember fighting the dude, and I was doing pretty good. Whoever gets to like 20 points wins, and there's 3 rounds. But whoever gets to 21st wins. And I remember it was like I was 7 and he was 8. Like, we were almost tied, I remember. And I remember like it was like a flash, a blackout, and then I came to. Yeah. So here's what happened. His leg goes up. So like the bottom leg and the top leg are like this, just like a perfect straight line. So flexible. Yeah. And the top leg just comes down on my face. Ooh. And I remember, and like, they're not kidding when they say you black out. It was like black. Literally, I couldn't see anything. And then a second later, I came to. And what happened was I just kind of like stumbled back and I came to. And the ref came over to me. He was like, 1, 2, he's counting. And I was like, I'm good. And I keep telling him over and over, I'm good. But then I realized, wait, my mouth's not working. I'm not saying anything. It was all in my head. So then I finally just kind of like snapped out of like, no, wait, I'm good. And the ref's like, okay. All right, calm down. And he's like, show me your fist. I'm like, I show my fist. That means like you're ready to get back in. And I got back in. And I was about to go in, and right as we're about to resume the fight, the ref's like, stop. was like, what happened? What's going on? And the ref like comes up to me and like looks at my eye. He's like, yep, you're bleeding. I was like, no, wait, I don't feel anything. I can still fight. And like, no, you're bleeding from like the top. It's
Yeah.
like the blood's going to get in your eye. And plus your eye's like swelling up and turning purple. And so it's like, oh man, that sucks. I was really mad. Not that I had gotten hit like before. I wasn't going to, whine like, I don't want to do this anymore. I was mad that I wasn't able to continue the fight. And that's how much I had grown at that point. And the guy that I was fighting, I remember when I was like, no, I can still fight. He was like, whoa, like this kid's for real. He wants to still fight me.
Yeah.
It's insane. And so like of course the fight was stopped. He won. And we fist bumped. It was all good. And I remember watching this guy fight the rest of his fights. Of course, this guy won. He got gold medal. Of course, the guy was a monster. But all the people that he fought were like crying and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like he kicked this one dude in the jaw and the guy like legit started crying. I was like, man, I used to be that guy.
Well, I mean, nothing will break you out of like, I don't want to be here more. Quite like an axe kick to the head,
dude,
split eye and a fucked up orbital bone.
Oh yeah,
like this guy. We just hit that hour mark, man. Like I said, this has been,
man.
Dude, it goes by quick, man. We just sit here talk shit. We talked about Vegeta, but there is one more question I want to ask, and I always try to end it with the same one. I always try to change it up just a little bit depending on who I'm talking to. So since you are so young in your career, and that's not a knock against you at all, you just happen to be born when you were born. You've done what you've done, right? But if you had to choose between Gumball, you could do one more time, Gumball or Prince Vegeta, right? If you had that button power, right? Who are you going to take? Are you going to take and revisit Gumball, or are you going to do the Prince of all Saiyans, Prince Vegeta?
I would say, here's the thing. There would be a time, there was a time where without hesitation, I would have said Gumball. But now that, it's been like 4 years later and, I've grown, I've learned that there's so many more opportunities out there than just one role. I would say Vegeta, not because I'm a huge like Vegeta fan. Of course, it's part of it, but it's something new. It's a new opportunity. It's a new journey. And I'm always down for like a new role. And of course, if Gumball were to like come back, which I hope it does, because they ended on a cliffhanger, and I'm very upset with this cliffhanger, and everyone else is too. I'm not the minority for saying that. But if they were to come back and wrap it up in like a movie or something, I would 100% be down to do it. But yeah, I'm always looking forward to like the next thing, So
that's a good
Prince Vegeta all the way.
That's a good mindset to have, man. Like I said, especially, if we didn't do this face to face, there's no way in hell that I would have thought you were 18 years old, man. Like I said, hats off to your mom and dad for raising you right, man. You're a fantastic human being. Keep crushing it.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Is there anything that we didn't discuss that we can try to send some fans towards your way? Movies, books, TV shows, anything that you're allowed to talk about?
Yes, actually. The one thing that we didn't quite get to is a new movie that's coming out, I believe, early next year. It's called Carolina's Calling, and as far as like how much I can say about it, all I can pretty much say about it is it's a movie about the discovery of extraterrestrial life.
Ooh, E.T. Love it.
It involves a lot of science, a lot of sci-fi. It's a sci-fi alien movie. I'm really excited about it. And I believe it's coming out early next year, if not like maybe December 2020, like late December. It's going to be around that time. But I will be sure to update everyone, let them know. My Instagram is Hopkins Jake. My Twitter is Hopkins Jacob 5, and that's where I'll announce everything.
Beautiful, man. Well, he has been Jacob Hopkins. I've been Julian with @in my head pod. It's on the bottom of the screen. We are out of time. Thanks, man. I really appreciate this. I don't know what just happened. Hold on. Somebody tried to call. They always try to call whenever I'm in a flow or this big state. They're like, oh man, fuck this guy. We're gonna hit call. Anyways, nonetheless, we're out of time. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. You could have chosen to do any day in the world, but you chose to do this, and I appreciate it, man. I'll see you when I see it, and I can't wait to have you back on down the road. You stay safe,
Awesome, man.
brother.
Peace.
Take it easy.